Salute to the peoples, to social forecasts, peace and blessings to the community. I hope everybody does something today to further your goals and to help you realize your dreams. All right, let's get into it. So, I've been looking forward to talking about this for a while, and I'm going to get into why. I'm going to give it a little segue, and then we're going to get into exactly what it is we're going to be talking about. So, for those of you who follow this channel, um, every so often, like every seems like so many months, I want it to be a lot more frequent, but it's hard to get multiple people on one accord for a common thing. Yeah, I know how that goes with schedules and work, and people are busy, but every so often I do on this platform what's called a roundtable discussion. And pick a topic, usually socially geared topic, whether it pertains to relationships or whatever social or political issues are going on. And we go around the panels, usually there's 3 to 4 to 5 of us, and we go in on whatever it is. So a few months ago, we did a roundtable discussion on abortion as it pertains to fathers' rights. Now, my position was that I feel like when it comes to the whole men versus women gender controversy that has been ongoing since forever, there are, for all of the inequalities that women feel they're at the short end of the stick when it comes to, them being pitted up against men, with unequal pay in the workplace, things like sexual harassment, things like, going even farther back, women not being able to vote. There are a slew of things that women have had gripes over, over the years and decades, as far as inequality when it comes to them versus men. All justifiable, rightfully so. But my position has always been that when it comes to men as fathers, that there are a lot of inequalities, and men are, in most cases, by society, by the courts, and even by women, even if in some of those instances it's subconscious, men are treated as auxiliary parents. We're minimized as parents. We're not looked at as important as parents as women are. We see this every year when Mother's Day and Father's Day comes around. You can go out into the world at any venue, any store, any place where kids and parents go and congregate. You can see hints of this happening. And so me, I'm very pro men. I speak up for my fellas. I feel like, we live in a time when there are so many movements going on, but not enough movements and not enough people speaking out for the things that men are kind of left out on. We see this a lot in rape culture, believe it or not. Still in 2019, men are clowned. Men are made to be the butt of a joke when it comes to sexual assault and harassment and rape, when the man is the victim, that you would never see when the woman is the victim. The same culture that talks about victim shaming and victim blaming, it's a whole different story when that victim is a man being victimized by a woman. It does, and it can happen. Legally it can, theoretically it can. It's a reasonable thing to be able to conclude that the same way a woman can be victimized, maybe it looks differently, but a man can also be victimized. So that's one example. The other example, to go back to parenting. So my position was, listen, there is no recourse for a man, a father to be, when the woman that he is dealing with that has gotten pregnant, there is no recourse or no decision that is on our shoulders as far as us being able to decide whether or not our unborn child gets to live. Society seems to perfectly accept that. Society, in large part, seems to be perfectly okay with saying, listen, it's a woman's body, the baby's in her body, she should be able to decide what to do with it. And my position has always been, and will continue to be, as long as it takes half of my DNA to create a child, then it should be a two-part decision on whether or not that child should have the chance to live. Now, the pro-lifers, the people who stand out in front of abortion clinics, picket, and go far enough back, people who tried to blow abortion clinics up and some who succeeded. and the many lobbyists out there who want there to be very stringent regulations and laws against abortion, they are in support of that for a very different reason. It doesn't have anything to do with equality for men as fathers. It's all about the unborn child. And I don't have an issue with that either. So this story that I'm going to be talking about is more of a victory to the pro-lifers. It's more of a victory to the people who say abortion is morally wrong and it should be legally wrong, period. But I will take that as a victory for what my argument was, because you can go back and watch the roundtable discussion. It's still on my channel, still on the platform. I said that I don't care what the recourse or protection would look like, but there should be something in place that would ensure that a father-to-be who is looking forward to fatherhood, looking forward to parenthood, who wants, their child to have life, whatever that protection would look like, I'm satisfied and I'm happy. Now, it's a small step because there are 50 states, and so far, the story I'm about to get into, it's only one state, but hopefully there will be progression here, and we might hopefully see this on a national stage, maybe with some tweaks to it. So what am I talking about? So here's the interesting thing. This is why I'm talking about this story, because it goes back to the roundtable discussion that I did with the panelists that I did it with, and salute to my sister Jazz from the Comfort Zone and the various other panelists who joined in on the discussion. There were, I believe, 4 of us all together, 2 women, 2 men. So a bill banning most abortions becomes law in Ohio. And this just happened this week. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed the bill Thursday afternoon, just one day after it passed the Republican-led General Assembly. The law is slated to take effect in 90 days unless blocked by a federal judge. The law is now known as the Human Rights Protection Act. Now, what this is what they're saying is essentially is that they're nicknaming it the heartbeat law. Let's talk about a little bit of the history of abortion in this country, because this came up during the roundtable discussion, and the panel didn't really know, and there's no shade to them, unless you looked into this thing, and unless you've been passionate about this thing for a period of time and actually did research, you wouldn't just know. But the panelists didn't know that abortion being illegal in this country is a fairly recent thing. Prior to 1973, abortion was pretty much illegal. Back in the day, you had all of these kind of hole in the wall, illegal pop-up abortion clinics that were definitely operating, off-keel, below board, not sanctioned or legal at all. But in 1973, it's a monumental case that the Supreme Court decided on, Roe v. Wade. For those of you who might be familiar, Roe v. Wade was the case where it was determined by the Supreme Court that abortion would be a legal thing to do up until a fetus was viable. Viable means that fetus, apart and outside of the womb, apart from the mother, no longer attached to an umbilical cord, could sustain itself and live outside of the womb. Viability, if you look it up, is said to be, a fetus is said to be viable somewhere between and after the 22 to 24 week mark. I would have to do the math in my head, but I would imagine that's probably somewhere around the 2.5 term, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that general time frame. And that was the Roe v. Wade case. That was the decision of the Supreme Court, that a woman can decide whether or not to abort her child legally with no ramifications or legal issues, as long as it was before that 22 to 24 week period. And then obviously a doctor would have to, play a part medically in that decision and what it would look like and whether or not it was too late, and all those different things come into play. Now, it would have been enough for me if this law was signed into place in the state of Ohio. But It's a whole different, and I never even would have imagined, but it's a whole different approach that's being taken by the state of Ohio. So this governor, Mike DeWine, the bill that he signed had previously been vetoed by the prior Ohio governor who held that seat, because it was cited that it was ridiculously unconstitutional. I got a question, a side question, before I go on with this story. And if you're watching this video, listening to this content, I'd like an answer in the comments if you don't mind. Is it, in your opinion, more or less constitutional to ban a woman from aborting an unborn child? Is it more or less constitutional than a woman aborting the life of an unborn child if you are under the belief that a woman should be able to decide what to do with her body, and even if there's a person living inside of that body, she should be able to do whatever she wants to that baby, including terminating the life of that baby? Is it more or less constitutional than the most basic right that we as American citizens are afforded by that same Constitution, which is our most basic right to live, right? We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Is it more or less constitutional for a person's right to live or a person's right to terminate life because that life started in their body? That's be careful, because this is not a trick question. It's oxymoronic. You can't be on one side or the other, and that's why I'm asking the question, and I'm curious to see what people's positions on that would be. So answer that question for me, and I'm going to get back into the story. So this is being called the heartbeat law. So where the Supreme Court said, listen, we're gonna allow women to make the decision on their own free will. Nobody can force, try to convince or sway them. If they choose to abort their unborn child, they can do so within a certain time period. Once it's medically determined that a fetus is viable to live outside of the womb, then at that point we kind of look at it as you killing a person. So if it's before that period of time, go ahead and have all the abortions you want to have. Do what you need to do. But after that, you're going to have to carry that baby to term as long as it's medically safe for you to do so. This law, whole different drastic approach. The heartbeat law dictates that abortion will be illegal. Cannot do it, cannot have it done in the state of Ohio once a fetus's heartbeat is detectable. It's a whole different thing. A fetus being viable, meaning all of their organs are at least developed enough, the brain, the heart, the lungs, everything developed enough for that fetus to live outside of the womb. That's a whole different thing than from when heartbeat is detectable. And the article talks about it, and you can research this as well. Heartbeats are detectable in the fetus from as early as 5 to 6 weeks. Think about what that means, because most people don't even find out they're pregnant until weeks into that pregnancy, when they start to have some kind of symptoms or even start to notice it might be a little bit late on my period. So most women in the state of Ohio, once this law goes into effect, again, if it's not blocked by a federal judge, and honestly, I hope it won't be, and I'll get into that part later. Most women, by the time they find out they're pregnant, will already be past this threshold. Now, the controversy between the pro-choice community and the pro-life community is going to be reinvigorated by this. There are already organizations coming out saying, whoa, this is not constitutional. We're fighting this. We need a judge to stop this immediately. And then you, of course, have the pro-lifers who are already celebrating because they have actually been lobbying for this specific law for quite some time. So now here's my thing. Remember when I said that I don't care what the protection would look like for somebody like me who is a father, but who also in my early adulthood was not given the opportunity to have a part in a decision to abort an unborn child of mine. And that has kind of stuck with me throughout my life, just because of the kind of person that I am. And I've always felt since that, in countless other stories and experiences that people have had that they have shared with me, that it seems wrong on some level that although it takes two parents to create a child, only one has to decide that they want to snuff out the life of that child before it has had a chance to even start, and the other parent has no say whatsoever. Cool. People want to argue over the real estate and say, well, the baby's growing inside of the woman's body, can't tell a woman what to do with her body, so it is what it is. Agree to disagree, but I can kind of somewhat, I guess, in theory, understand that argument. But at the end of the day, it's about a life, right? Everybody has the right to live. Why? Because let me approach this differently. And I'm going to make this, I can't make this what I'm going to say a generational thing. I'm going to make it an American thing and loosely a world issue, present day. And for as far back as I'm going to say the past 3 decades. For some reason, people, more particularly Americans, because of all, maybe because of all the freedoms that we enjoy, maybe because of all the rights and the liberties that we do have as Americans, in this democracy, well, supposed democracy, maybe that has caused us over time to forget that at the end of the day, when you strip everything away and it's just about life and it's just about the universe and the nature of the laws that govern the universe and life and everything it encompasses, there are consequences for everything in life. Everything. We learned this in 4th grade science class. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Everything that goes out comes in. Everything that comes in goes out. What goes up comes down. It just is what it is. For everything that occurs and for everything that you do and put out into the universe in some way, shape, or form is going to come back. And yet, somehow, even though that's the case, it seems like we have the hardest time accepting the responsibility for the consequences of actions that we initiated. When you lay down with a person, I don't care who that person is, I don't care why you chose to lay down with them, you are potentially laying down with the next mother or father of your child. For you to then turn around and say, well, I'm not ready to be a parent, I'm not ready to be a mom, or whatever my situation or circumstance is, I'm just going to have an abortion, start over from scratch, and that's it. No, you should be forced to deal with the consequences of your actions. There is a caveat to that. I'll get into that later because it's one of the issues I do have with this bill. And I think it may be the reason why, if it does happen, that this bill might end up, it's officially a law in Ohio. This law might end up being blocked by a federal judge. But basically, I feel like people don't want to be accountable for their actions. And then they want to put a whole bunch of other things and ideas into it to kind of bounce around the acknowledgement of, listen, I made the decision to do what I did with this person, so we're just going to have to deal with what comes next with it and make plans to do what we got to do. So for the pro-choice community, I understand pro-choice because on a certain level, I am pro-choice, and I'll get into that and with one of the issues I have with this bill. And on the other hand, I am pro-life. I just believe that every person has the right to live. Nobody, no organization, no faction, no government, no individual, even if it's capital punishment, nothing and no one has the right to determine that a person's life should end on such and such a day or whenever. Nobody has that right. We are not God. We are not a deity. We are not a higher power. We did not grant ourselves life force, so we should not take it upon ourselves to take life force from someone else. Then you would have the animal lovers, that community would say, well, same thing applies to animals, and they would have a point. So I won't get too deep on that. I really can't argue that point. So here's the thing. in this fucked up, crazy society, you can have two groups, let's say the pro-lifers and the pro-choice group, on opposite ends of each other, arguing some of the same points, right? The moral, the constitutional, the legal validity of abortion clinics and what it is, and you're murdering a child, and it's immoral, and it's a sin, and all these different things. And both groups on both sides would have valid points. I 100% agree with this law, 100%. And honestly, I wish that it was a law that would be strongly considered on the federal level, and at the very least by other states, because I think it's time we go back to, listen, you get pregnant, you got to deal with it. Like, we're not doing that. This whole abortion shit. People should be against it, but the only problem I have though with this law is that it does not account for it. So the law does account for if there is medical risk to the health of the mother. So you can't have an abortion once the fetus has a detectable heartbeat. But if you're in danger of not surviving the pregnancy, if you're in danger of not surviving labor, if doctors determine that you're not healthy enough to be in labor, whatever issues come down the line with women, that things that they can go through while they're pregnant, if it is determined that your health, your life could possibly be at risk by continuing this pregnancy, then that's the loophole, the caveat, that you can terminate that pregnancy, because we're not going to say, obviously, that you have to carry this child even if it means your death. But interestingly enough, the law does not account for rape. What was the other thing? Let me see here. I got receipts, so I'm just making sure my information is all in line here. Okay, so the bill does include an exception to save the life of the woman, but no exception for cases of rape or incest. That's just disgusting. Now, on the incest part is disgusting. On the rape thing, this is the thing that kills me. And this article goes back and forth with all the different groups and the things that people are speaking out and saying this is unconstitutional, it's ridiculous, and blah, blah, blah. It says legislation is blatantly unconstitutional, and we will fight to the bitter end to ensure that this bill is permanently blocked. This is by the ACLU of Ohio legal director, Frederick Livingston. That's a statement that they made. The rape thing. Okay. So this is where the waters get a little bit murky for me. If someone... because I'm all about actions, deliberate actions, and consequences. If someone is raped, you did not choose to have that sexual encounter. If out of that is born a pregnancy, not only should you not be forced to carry out that pregnancy if you don't want to, because you were forced to have a sexual encounter with someone, and that pregnancy and the life of that child, if you choose to keep that child and raise it, or if you're forced to keep that child and raise that child, is a constant reminder every day of what happened to you. And most people, and it would be human nature, I would not blame anyone, most people would not be able to raise that child, as a completely loving parent, because you essentially might look at that child as the spawn of what, constant reminder of what you were forced to do. So I understand that. This is what needs to be changed in this law for me to 100% agree with it. They shouldn't, if you're going to say that barring the medical condition of the mother, it should also include rape as well, because that's not something that someone chose. I'm not completely, an asshole. I would never think or say that a woman who was raped should have to carry a child to term and give birth to that child. Should be able to, and some people can say that's a contradiction, because if you're pro-life, you're pro-life. The baby didn't have anything to do with that mother being raped. Yeah, but you know what? You're also thinking about I don't want to say the safety of that child, but to force someone who's already had the traumatic experience of being raped, who might never mentally, emotionally be the same, it would be unfair to ask that parent, that mother, to care for and try to raise that child. And then people can say, well, we can put them up for adoption. It just gets messier and messier from there. Um, I don't know. I really want to know, because this is all stemming from the roundtable discussion that I did, and it's very interesting. This is coming up now. I really want to know what you think, what you all think of this law. If you're from Ohio, definitely let me know what you think about it, because now you're going to be in the middle of this. See, because in the roundtable discussion, so ironic. In the roundtable discussion, when we got down to the bare bones, right, the meat and potatoes of the discussion, it came out that, okay, look, we're not okay if you saying that there should be a law that would force a mother to carry an unborn child if she doesn't want to, because you're telling a woman what to do with her body. But if it was known first that abortions are illegal, then we can understand there being legal consequences and ramifications, if someone tried to have an abortion anyway. Well, here you are. And this is, if anybody who was on that panel is watching, and I plan to talk with my sister Jazz in a later follow-up blog on this very topic, because I'm gonna bring back all the points I made. I'm gonna bring up this story, talk about this new Ohio law, and I'm gonna see what her position is and how she feels about it, because everybody on the panel agreed that, all right, if it was illegal and it was known that it was illegal, then we kind of understand, because you're going into it with the knowledge of, I'm about to have sex with this person. Maybe I'm not protecting myself. Maybe I forgot to take my birth control, whatever it is. But if I have sex with this person, it's possible that I may get pregnant. And they do it anyway, knowing full well, if you live in the state of Ohio, that you are more than likely going to have to carry that child to term, because you're probably not going to find out you're pregnant until after there is a detectable heartbeat. The panel agreed that that would be reasonable. That if it was known prior to that the abortion was going to be illegal past that short time window, then they all said, then yeah, we wouldn't have a problem with that. So now I'm holding y'all to that. Now I want to know, and I want to know what y'all think. I don't know if I would say, I guess, see, because it comes down to the argument of when is life life? When does life starts? Is it viability? Can you say, well, if the fetus was born today, they wouldn't survive, so that's not technically life? But is life a heartbeat? Is that when life is it's the inception of life, when it starts? Because scientists can speculate and medical doctors can say what they want to say about viability and how long it takes for a fetus to be developed and live outside of the womb, and when does a fetus become a child, and all these things. Great. No one knows what the true is conception life, is the point in which the sperm penetrates the egg, is that life. No one knows when life actually starts. Couldn't possibly. So it becomes very hard to try and say, okay, let's give them some choice, but then let's say there's got to be a cutoff. Maybe I'd be willing to stipulate to the fact that maybe the heartbeat detectability like that might be a little early, just because by wording it that way, and it's very clever, I would say 9 out of 10 women would not be able to have an abortion, because you're not going to, you have a busy life, you're living, going to work, school, you're doing what you're doing. By the time you realize you've missed a period, you're already going to probably be on that 4th going into that 5th week, or that 5th week going into that 6th week. So it's going to be very unlikely. It's going to be very unlikely for a person to make that deadline. And so that's why I say maybe it's not the most fair. Because if that's the case, just make it totally illegal. Don't make it legal under the guise that you do it before a certain time period, but that time period is not really reasonable enough amount of time for you to have knowledge of that situation being that situation. You see what I'm saying? So I guess I would be okay with saying, listen, If a heartbeat is detectable anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks, let's say you have until the end of your first trimester. I mean, I feel like that would be more than reasonable to say that, abortions are going to be legal up to the end of your first trimester. You have to get, obviously inspected by your doctor. If they determine that you are within that first trimester, if you decide for whatever your personal reasons or whatever your life situation is that you're not ready or don't want to yet to have a child and don't want to bring a child into this world, fine. Within that first trimester, no one's going to force you. I think I'd be, I'm happy with this because it's, like I said, whatever that protection for me as a father, for potential fathers out there would look like, I'm here for it. But I also wouldn't mind, and I wouldn't be mad at there being a little bit of leniency, like just a few alterations in this thing. But then it should go nationwide. Abortion should be illegal. I think the Supreme Court got it wrong back in 1973 in the Roe v. Wade decision when they decided that abortion should be legal. I think that barring rape, let's throw incest in there because that's just disgusting, barring those two things and barring medical risk to the mother, I think abortion should just be illegal, period. And that's just it. Like, if you don't want the responsibility of a child, don't engage in activities that would result in you having a child. It's really simple. It's really not that difficult. Like, we want to have all the fun. We want to engage in things and do things like, people who drink in excess. There's a possibility you're going to become an alcoholic. And if you do, it's a possibility that you're going to have some liver damage or whatever else. Deal with that shit. If having fun is that important to you, that you have to do it in excess for a long enough period of time for damage to occur to your body, deal with those consequences. I'm a smoker. I know full well that, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories. I know full well that they say that smoking is one of the leading causes for cancer. I don't believe it, but whatever. And I continue to do it, then I can't turn around later and say, oh, like all these people who wanted to sue tobacco companies when they realized, oh shit, we're dying off this shit. That shit's not healthy. Like people may not have known back in the 50s and the 60s and the 40s and, what the extent of the detriment that cigarette smoking could cause to your body. But anybody who's a smoker, you can feel that that's not a healthy thing to do. And that's not just a healthy hobby or pastime. You know that something is happening there. And same thing with this. Like, you lay down with someone, not using condoms, you're not using the morning after pill, you're not using whatever other forms of contraceptive there are out there, you're not taking your birth control, whatever it is, that there's a possibility, however small, because no form of birth control is 100% except for abstinence. And I'm not telling people out here to not have sex. Adults can do what they want to do, live your life, do it safe. It is what it is. Just be ready to be be with the smoke. Like, you can't not be with the smoke when shit don't go your way. That's my point. That's my only real position after, the father's rights, and all of that, because I'm always going to cape for my men no matter how bad we look out here as a community. And we look crazy out here sometimes, but I'm still going to cape for my fellas because it's just what I do. And that's, really why I built this platform in the first place. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this story. Let me know what y'all think about this Ohio governor, Mike DeWine, the heartbeat law, abortion, now officially illegal in the state of Ohio after a fetus has a detectable heartbeat. It's pretty drastic. It's a pretty drastic law. I mean, they really, really did drive that shit home. I'm going to follow this story because I believe that it's going to find its way into a courtroom very soon and may even move up the chain, from small court to the larger courts. But I think there is a possibility that a federal judge may block this law before the 90 days are up and before it has a chance to go into effect. And if it is blocked, I think it's only going to be blocked on the basis of that last part that you really can't argue against. And that's the rape situation, because women everywhere are going to say, listen, y'all can't expect us to have a child born out of us being victimized by rapists. So let me know what y'all think about this one. I'll be back shortly with another video, some more content. For all the people just passing through to my channel, these are the types of things we talk about. This is what happens on this platform. I apologize, I'm not around every day like I used to be to make blogs and videos as often as I used to. Very busy. I'm trying to get back up my production. But social forecasting is what we do. So like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Hit the like button. Share my content, because this is the real shit that I talk about that people really deal with. It's cool to go to the channels that have the ratchet shit. It's cool to go to the channels that have the entertainment and comedic relief. That's cool. But at some point during your day, you need some real shit. And this is where the real shit is. And this is where we talk about it. And this is what I do. It's a social forecast. If you follow my content, you think I'm overly opinionated, you're 100% correct. If you follow my content, you think I talk a lot of shit, you're also correct about that. I talk a lot of shit because I'm passionate about the shit that I talk about. At the end of the day, I'm just a realist who sees shit for what it is and approaches every situation in a commonsensical way. And that's because my logic is undeniable. That logic is there are few things that separate us: oceans, borders, and culture. Outside of those few things, we are all just a part of one human race, trying to find the best way to carve out a life for ourselves and the people we care about. Salute to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Salute you. Salute to the people. See you on the next one. Social Forecast.